As peace makes progress in East Ukraine amid the withdrawal of heavy arms, locals are left to deal with the legacy of war. RT joins a mine-clearing team on a mission in Donetsk. Anti-government protests rock Athens, with Greeks running out of patience as the new cabinet's promise to put an end to austerity hangs in the air. Plus, the US and Cuba are set for another round of talks to re-establish ties, but it may be too early to celebrate as there are plenty of differences the two sides have to iron out after a freeze lasting half a century. Hello there, you're watching RT International. It's just gone midday here in the Russian capital. Welcome to the programme. The fragile ceasefire in East Ukraine is now largely holding, but there's still a constant danger: unexploded shells. These lie scattered all over the region. RT's Murad Gazdiev joined a team clearing live shells outside the city of Donetsk, which saw some of the worst violence.
We're just outside of Donetsk, west of the city, in fact, in the outskirts, which have been especially battered by the fighting. You can see all the vegetation mangled over here. The houses are all abandoned. There aren't any people left here. All the fences are down, the windows blown out. And one of the problems is a lot of unexploded shells. This is a mortar shell, for example, buried in the pavement. It's about this big, and it didn't explode. That's the detonator. So we're here with a mine clearing squad, which is going to blow this up and make it safe.
Clearing buried mortar rounds isn't so time-consuming. It's more the sheer number left by the Ukrainian military that's the problem. The squad has learned to work quickly.
Now a safe distance away, everybody's taken cover, and they're about to blow it. This mortar shell has now been made safe, and it's left behind a good-sized crater. You can see the cracks snaking out of it. But, you know, if you compare this 80mm shell to some of the other stuff being used here in eastern Ukraine, it's, well, not very powerful. The killing radius is still hundreds and hundreds of meters, but it doesn't cause devastation like this. The danger these present, the greatest danger, is to locals, to kids and to cars who might not see the little tail end sticking out of the ground, especially if it's off the pavement. Step on it and detonate it.
About 60 to 70% of shells do not detonate. People are returning to their homes. They see the devastation, finding exploded shells and collars.
And the calls kept on coming in. Sappers here really are in demand. Next up, a farmer's field where a pipe repair team had stumbled onto a tank shell. Detonating it was out of the question. So the sappers decided to transport it to a disposal yard. The next job was in no man's land, the area between the Ukrainian front lines and the local fighters. The ceasefire's holding, but no one here is eager to test the other side's discipline. The team turned around. There's plenty of other dangerous work to do to make these areas safe for people as they slowly return to rebuild their shattered lives.
It's been 70 years since the Second World War, and we are still finding shells. How many we will find after this war, no one knows.
Murad Gazdiev, RT, from Donetsk, eastern Ukraine.
In a key move to implement the peace deal, the warring sides are pulling back their big guns. Anti-government forces say they've almost completed the withdrawal of their heavy armour. Kiev also started its pullback on Thursday. We spoke to the Deputy Chief Monitor of the OSCE team in Ukraine overseeing the process.
We see now mutual actions towards compliance with the Minsk arrangements. The OSCE Special Monitoring Mission notes that both sides have announced that they will be moving hardware away from the front line We welcome this mutual step.
Alexander Hug, the Deputy Chief Monitor of the OSCE mission in Ukraine, talking there. These are some of the videos of the pullout we've been receiving, showing anti-government forces in Lugansk region withdrawing their tanks and armed vehicles there. But while arms are being pulled back in eastern Ukraine, in eastern Europe, there's been a flexing of military muscle. Latvia hosted joint drills with American and Canadian forces. Martin Packard, a former NATO intelligence analyst, told RT what he believes the alliance wants from Ukraine.
What I see is that it suits various elements in both in the United States and maybe in Britain to escalate friction in Ukraine. I think this is a period when everybody's trying to get more money out of their exchequers for upping their rearmament. Certainly that seems to be so in Britain, probably so in America too. Military forces, in a way, need to have an enemy. It suits them to have an enemy.
Over to Kiev now then, where Ukrainian football fans attacked their French counterparts. A group of masked home supporters of Dynamo Kiev became aggressive towards the visiting fans, disrupting a Europa League match. It's not clear what triggered the fight though, but reports say the attackers were angered by one of the Frenchmen unfolding a banner saying, "Crimea is Russia." The French team's president slammed the Kiev fans as, quote, "rabid dogs." French supporters have been warned against coming to Ukraine. Protests against Greece's newly elected anti-austerity government have rocked Athens for the first time since Syriza swept to power. After the march, some demonstrators clashed with police and set cars alight, accusing Prime Minister Alexei Tsipras and his government of failing to live up to pre-election promises. Meanwhile, Germany's parliament has signalled it's set to give the thumbs up to Greece's bailout extension in a vote later on today. But repeated cash injections for Athens are testing Berlin's patience, as RT's Lizzie Phelan reports.
The David and Goliath battle between the Greek and German governments will go through another milestone today, as both parliaments vote on the extension of Greece's so-called bailout program. And in Germany, it looks as though it will go through with the biggest majority in the country's parliament for any Eurozone package to date, which apparently stands in stark contrast with the will of the German people, reflected in an extremely provocative campaign by German tabloid Bild that went with the headline, "9, no more billions for the greedy Greeks." Now, Bild went as far as to rally public pressure on the German government and initiated a selfie campaign with Germans posting pictures of themselves with the tabloid's hit piece. All of this comes as the Greek finance minister Yanis Varoufakis said that the pressure from Germany amounts to the equivalent of bloodletting of Greece, which he warned that unless it stops, then Greeks will be driven into the arms of racists and nationalists, a warning that appears to fall on deaf ears amongst many Germans who are increasingly expressing their anger towards their government's efforts to keep Greece in the Eurozone.
Well, it's hardly surprising that the German public is rather reluctant to write off Greece's debt. Athens still owes €315 billion, most of it to the EU. And if Greece does go bankrupt, Germany will lose almost €80 billion of those. Economist Hans-Werner Sinn says that the uncompromising tone of Tsipras and his government is badly timed.
They want to escape the troika conditions, which are very specific in terms of reforms which the Greek government has to do. They want to increase the minimum wages, they want to increase the pensions, they want to hire more people. This is all not in line with the original agreement. I mean, this is a voluntary offer by others to the Greek people to help them, and if they don't want it, they don't want it. But they cannot say, I want it with better conditions, you know. That's a little bit strange.
Online, Greece's new finance minister is making waves, but not political ones. Varoufakis. That's a line from a German TV parody mocking the charismatic minister's impact on Europe. You can watch the entire clip if you want to at rt.com. Bahrain has stepped up a crackdown on the country's main opposition party. The Interior Ministry is criminally investigating the pro-Shia Al-Wafaq party, which it suspects of attempting to undermine national security. Bahrain's authorities have made previous attempts to crack down on opposition and human rights activists, among them Nabil Rajab, who was arrested in 2012 for publicly insulting the monarchy. He spent 2 years in prison for doing so. He's now been summoned to court once again, accused of inciting hatred within Bahraini society. Now, we managed to talk to Nabil Rajab, and he told us that the police could arrest him at actually any minute.
This is a new case. It's out of series of cases been against me in the past 5 years. And I don't know, it's about incitement, hatred against the government, and this is a normal charges they have against all human rights defenders or politicians and activists. I could be arrested at any time. I am not part of any organization, violent or armed or opposition. I'm a human rights defender who don't have anything other than his pen and his tongue. I only speak and write. That's the only thing that I'm being charged with. It's about what I'm saying or what I am writing. Almost all the human rights defenders are behind bar, or the few left are outside the country. I remain the only person speaking with station like you, and I don't know if that will last or not. And I don't know if tomorrow I go to the police station, I'll come back or not. Most likely I will not come back. But again, this is the cost of the human rights work we do, and we will continue. We will not stop, whatever is the cost.
Coming up on RT International, the secret of a warehouse in Chicago. This building appears to have been a CIA-style black site in which terrorist suspects were interrogated. The full story is coming up shortly. Plus,
the Great Llama Watch 2015.
There's a llama chase underway.
They know if they get split up, kind of like Bonnie and Clyde.
2 llamas cause a media frenzy as major channels broadcast live a police chase for the animals on the loose. More on that a little later on this hour.